you come to all the meetings?
When I think that there's gonna be something important with the sheriff's discussion today.
Right.
Or when I can. I have a conflict and I don't. I tried to come up with coffee and out there open. But I don't have the hardware and software to watch on the computer. It's way too long to watch on the telephone.
Yeah. Yeah, that meeting last Thursday was pretty long.
Yeah, it was.
I was the one
Oh,
who did it.
because of the deputy, extremely well-paid deputy, who was, couldn't shut his mouth, being loquacious. And he made sure not to have any stops, so anyone could stop and ask him a question.
Yeah, nobody could get a word in edgewise. I've run into people like that.
Hello.
Yeah.
Good morning, Brian.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Good, how are you? I'm Marion.
Oh, cool.
Morning.
Good morning. How are you this
I'm
morning?
doing pretty well. How about you guys?
Oh,
You know, with the weather being nice yesterday and these next couple of days, it makes me think, yay,
yeah.
spring is coming, really.
Don't get
I know.
yet.
I know.
Ohio will do that to you.
Well, but, you know, we talked out in the hallway the one time about May, we had snow, but I think if we do, it'll be not
Oh, it's-
quite so,
It's
you know,
usually not like
yeah,
a hurricane,
yeah.
blizzard.
Well, I guess I wasn't paying close enough attention to know that we gotta change the time already on Sunday. Saturday night to Sunday already.
I didn't pay attention to that, you're right.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that.
Well, and you know, to me, I love having the lighter at night and stuff, but driving in the dark sometimes in the morning until we catch everything up is more weird.
But you're right, that's coming up on the equinox.
Yeah. Hey.
Everyone come in.
Sabrina.
Yes.
And Tony, now that he's here, I had a thought this morning. With the sheriff, if you don't give them any more cars than they're already allotted for this year's budget, might I suggest that they do an experiment, keep one or two, say two regular patrol cars, assign them to deputies instead of having them be in the pool, and compare to see if there really is any significant savings.
Are you recording?
Yeah. That's something
I'm totally
they
deaf.
never do, because they
Just
want
mention-
Marion,
all black or all white,
This
or
one.
all black or all gold. Yeah.
Well, I think we sort of have some.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I think we sort of have some of those numbers. You'll hear today.
But just a thought.
That's a good. Thank you. James. Good morning, anyone?
Good morning, I'm Marion Nagler.
Nice to meet you, Marian. I'm just Carell, but just so you know. Good morning. Glad you're here. And everyone signed in, Marion O'Brien.
I was signing. Setting it up.
Sorry. Thank you. I know. They asked me much because there's people who are missing. So.
I put a number over there for my kids, you know, that's for Thursday.
Gotcha.
Calling, but I put
He's
two-
calling us or we call him?
We call him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because, like I said, I didn't have it.
Yeah.
Keep calling, you know, in case we ran over.
Oh, sure.
And, you know, I know he's busy, so.
Morning, Miss Joanne.
Hey, how are you?
Good. What's up, Brian?
this watch is on the proper time.
We got 4 minutes.
I usually go by my phone. Yeah, I was gonna
We
say.
go by our phone.
I go by my phone and try to go by my watch, and it's always different than that.
It all should be synced, huh?
And you know how many times we've changed that?
Runs by battery, you'll never get it to.
Greenwich Meridian.
I think mine in my office is.
Morning, Vicky. Okay, how are you?
No matter how many times people see your name, they always misspell it in your contracts, I see.
Yes,
I always wanna put an I at the second A, or the third A.
I've never been anybody that can spell it.
Spelled it right.
I couldn't spell anything else.
You know, the thing is, it's spelled just like
It
it's
sounds
not.
I know, isn't this
Yeah.
the strange
Yeah,
thing?
it is.
And you come up when you see these letters, and I'm like, where did you guys pick this one up? Yeah.
I took a memory class, and you had to come up with a way to tell people to say your name. And mine was a bunch of battery men who were on their knees fighting with teeth.
Oh, there you go.
Doesn't work.
It's sort of like Canada.
Yeah.
Or see an Italian and they have 21 letters in their alphabet, so they have a better chance of spelling their words right. Fewer wrong choices.
There you go. Good?
Good morning, everyone. If you join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We've got Joanna first this morning.
Yep, I wanted to come up and bring to you folks, the estimate that we were able to get for the Board of Elections generator, I'm gonna call it the generator project. And it's come in just shy of $90,000. So, and this is basically putting their whole office like on generator power. But you know as well as I know, the generator power is basically, for example, if we go down out, if the power goes out at the jail, the generator kicks in, but it's only meant to kick in for a few days. I believe we have a 3-week that will hold everything out there till everything gets back up and running. This, I think, if we were to do something like this, it's kind of overkill, but this wouldn't be intended to run their office for 6 months or 3 months or whatever, like they gave you the information on the last time.
What happened to the rental idea, Joanne?
That's obviously still on the table, as well as I was checking with maintenance this morning because, half of the old emergency area down there, the annex, is empty now. And and I don't know for sure, but my guess is going to be that there was emergency power over there at some time that's hooked to our generator. The guys are gonna check that out, but that's another option. I mean, if in fact, on election night, the lights, the electric went out, we could move something there. We've got, I still, I haven't connected with Ryan, but there's still, I know, the option, he's got a generator, we can bring it in and hook them up enough to count their ballots and things like that. But I wanted to bring this forward because they were the ones who wanted to make sure that you guys got information.
So we have a generator from the annex, for our building here, correct?
Correct.
But only certain grids are on it.
The majority of, and seeing when that area got renovated, the several different times that it did, I don't think anything was ever thought to put that area on any kind of generator power at the time. We don't have any more room on the generator here to be adding anything.
Okay.
And that was one of the reasons why we had to go off the grid and say, okay, now we're gonna have to go out and try to fix or do something special for them.
Vicki, I had spoken with them about that temporary generator, and I was thinking, like, I think we all were, hey, just for that couple of days, they have to have, like, it's a month and a half before, and a month and a half afterwards. From what they were telling me about the state regulations, they have to be able to be prepared for that. So if they were to rent, we can't wait till it crashes during that time frame.
But that's why.
But we own, I mean, we own.
Yeah, we own some, no,
Right.
that was the difference, is we were gonna check the EMA to see
If they can do
if
that.
they
But no, I
could
was
have
answering the
it.
question.
He still has that, I know he does, and that's the other option, if you wanna pursue that, but I wanted to make sure that, cause if we have to go this route, if you decide that you wanna go this route, we don't have any other choice, we have to bid that, because it's over the $50,000, ticket, which will never get them anywhere close to what they need for this primary, and, by the time that everything with specs were written and the bids went out and all that kind of stuff, so.
Well, the other thing I would bring up is we're currently in our continuing of operation plan. We hired the consultant for the COOP plan. I mean, this should be part of that discussion, is what do we do if the power goes out? Because it's more than the Board of Elections. I mean, we've got a lot of things to figure out who has power, who doesn't. But as part of that COOP plan, that's the purpose of it, is to come up with these contingencies. And maybe a generator is the only way, but maybe through that process, alternatives, moving. If it's during this time period, we move here for voting. If it's during the counting, we do this. I mean, that could come up with
Yeah,
some
and I don't know if
options
they
as well.
have one, they should.
Yeah, well, they participated in the phone call.
Yeah,
Okay.
they were on the call last.
Yeah, I could be
week.
on it,
We
but-
just started, and it was actually a very good conversation, I think it's a great thing that we're doing. But, like you said, Joanne, we've got a lot of space down there on the first floor, if any of those rooms are on the ground.
Can be used, that's what I said, I think maybe we have to look at that as an option. But like Todd said, if something happens and the electricity goes off in this building, you've got more problems than just the Board of Elections, for sure. I mean, you have the auditor's office, how to pay checks, how do checks get done. Now, back in the day, we had the Woodlands at Robinson, if you remember, we had the basement configured so that if we ever had to leave this building because of something, we could go down at the basement, we had computerization stuff set up down there, the whole 9 yards. Well, we sold that, it's gone now. And we have the option of going out to the EOC when there's something that comes up, but I think that we just need to look within ourselves. I mean, you heard Kelly Jo, was it last week or the week before, about how much room she actually utilizes on second and third, and I think we need to look within ourselves first before we try to do something outside. That's my opinion on what you want
For
to do.
that price anyway, yeah.
Yeah, for 90,000, but yet, still, and have we ever had a power outage during the election?
Yes.
I mean,
We're getting a yes
Yes.
back there.
Yes, it was, 2 elections ago, because I was working out, is that when they were working?
no, it was the
24 hours a day?
computer system.
No, it wasn't, I think it was a Friday. No,
Not to this building.
I think it was a
Not
Friday.
Was it located someplace else besides here?
Yes, it was all throughout the county.
Oh,
There's
well,
several
we're
places.
talking about they're talking about here. That's what I was gonna say, but I was wondering if we've
didn't know if it went out here.
No, it didn't here.
No, I
That's
was
what
gonna
was
say, I'm
saying.
not,
I
I've
mean,
not
if it went out
known.
at some of the remote locations, it could go out here easily.
Right.
Yeah, but that wasn't my question. My question is, have we ever had it go out here that we know of?
Not that I can recall.
I was just wondering if it did, what
Well, you can,
What did we have done then, yeah?
you can run the scenarios, what happens if that train derails and it's a chemical that we have to evacuate this building? I mean, there's a lot of, but that's what the COOP plan is about, is, okay, well, what do we do if
Where
we
can
need
you
to
pick
get out
up
of
and
this
go and
building?
move and continue your operations?
You know, and
Yeah.
how does that happen for each and every department? What does the auditor need to get just their basic, what does the Board of Elections need just to get their basic business done? I think we let that process play out and then go for, you know, okay, well, does it make sense to put more money in this building, or do we create a backup building? The Kent basement, I mean, we
The
have
Kent
servers there and
basement, yeah,
whatnot.
Kent Court, we,
You know, that's gonna be the issue that comes before the commissioners, and whose issues does that solve then? Is it possible that we solve 5 departments in that area instead of just 1 or 2, you know? But that's the point of that.
So what is covered now? I guess I didn't realize what is covered and what isn't covered.
well, there's various areas of our building. If you ever see red outlets, those are all generator power. If you plug something into
Okay.
that
Red
stays in.
outlets, okay.
But to tell you every single area, I'd have to have maintenance, outline it for you. And it doesn't mean just because there's not like a red outlet or whatever that it's not either. But the majority of the tower and parts of the old building, but not anything that we renovated for the Board of Elections, because that was done in how many different, I'm thinking 3 different phases at 3 different times as they expanded into those areas, and it was just never, I don't believe, thought of at the time. So, we wanna look then kind of, if I'm hearing good today, we wanna start with looking at what the COOP plan might have said for them, work with Ryan on what he's got available, and he's been leading the task on the COOP plan anyway, so I think that we can work with him to kind of figure it out, and get some ideas and bring them back to the board, but I guess I'm hearing that we're not going to be looking at this, at least at this time.
Now,
Is it
I'd like
correct?
to see what our other options are, like you
First.
said, if we've got those rooms on the first floor that are backed by the other generator.
If you'll remember, I think
That's a solution.
one of the years, a few years back, the Board of Elections had wanted to expand their offices into the 2 big rooms downstairs.
Yeah.
And I think we ended up saying, well, unless you really have to, because people do use those big rooms as meeting room, because we don't have any place else in this room anymore, in this building. We don't have the luxury of going to the Woodlands and using their basement, those big rooms down there, so I think that, went by the wayside. They were gonna move their filing and stuff down there, remember? Okay, I figured, I knew you would remember that one, so.
So Joanne, are you gonna touch base then with the Board of Elections? Did they wanna come in and talk to us this week and tell them that we wanna, look at all the options?
Before they make an appointment to talk
Yeah.
with you, I will, okay. Yeah, there's no sense coming in and saying,
Just
because we don't have an answer yet.
Yeah, they've
Okay.
already been in presented that there's a need for it, we just have to figure out how
How we're
we're
gonna do
gonna
it.
try to meet
Okay.
their needs.
And before I go, Lloyd and his staff did a really, a good job, I believe, putting together a synopsis of replacement of your video stuff up here. I have the RFP, to go through and then put out so that we can get some people to bid on it. Now, in his specifications, he called for not spending over $25,000. Not saying that it's going to cost that much or whatever, but kind of trying to limit a budget. And the only thing that I wanted to review with you today in it that I saw was, he talked about how this new system, here go my fog up glasses, needs to be able to not interfere with the FTR recording software that Amy uses. But if we're looking at a new solution for here, why would we not maybe think about replacing that at the same time, because
So that's what I
it's
thought
gotta
we
be,
were gonna-
you know, it's, I think, a little bit maybe passe now. I mean, when I think of what I see going on at the courts and how they're documenting, court hearings and so forth, and it's, I don't think it's anything like what she has to use. So that's the one thing that I wanted to change in his specifications, was to say, we want a total package solution that brings us into the new century, not taking old and trying to piecemeal together, because I don't think we're getting ahead of the game.
That's what we're
there.
trying to do away with and have it all so that it's
Okay.
compatible.
All right. Otherwise, it's good to, I think it's good to go. He asked about a budget, and I just said, well, you know, we don't, the
So-
sky is not the limit here, you know.
Yeah, it was, so that was, we talked last Thursday about the Wi-Fi needed throughout the whole building with this fix.
Well, now this,
This is separate.
yeah,
separate.
this is just your recording here,
Okay, I
taking
thought
place
way
of
it
the
was talked about
Zoom.
last week was-
Now with Wi-Fi, I think I finally have it straight with him. I said, Lloyd, I go, I don't know where you picked the
Right.
few floors. I said, we need the whole building, and especially after, you know, Todd and I talked, and I said, if Kelly Jo has all this extra room that she's talking about, we may find out that, you know, it's a better fit to put, I'm throw it out, the recorder's office down on the second floor in this area because there's so much room. We want to have the whole building ready for Wi-Fi. We don't want to piecemeal it and then come back and say, well, now we need to have this. So now he's going to go back.
Building should be Wi-Fi.
Correct. He's going back and he's getting
What our
those
original
numbers.
request was. I don't know where the confusion that we're
Me either.
considered part of it.
I don't know. Well, and when he said, he goes, well, the department said, and I go, well, what departments did you ask? You didn't ask me. And Todd never got asked. So there's two departments right there. So I think it more may have been a couple departments said to him, we need to have Wi-Fi down here, and that's where he started. And then just figured, oh, well, they don't need it or they don't use it, and it's like, no, we should do our whole campus, and then that way we're ready for whatever moves come. I mean, we don't know what's gonna happen with the annex building or who may have to move in there, but this whole campus needs to be done, just like our other ones.
We get this, again, I would still be interested in taking it to our other buildings. You know,
Well-
the Riddle Block, to the courthouse, for crying out loud. I think they're using, what, hotspots or something? I mean, they figured out a way, but
I think that they have, kind of rigged the areas that they needed to have it for attorneys and things like that, and I don't think they have a total solution up there. Now they have a new person though that took Gordon's place that works for Judge Smith, so I'm gonna connect with him and find out where they actually sitting, if they're good up there, or if that, we need to have a solution for that building as well. Plus, I know the city of Ravenna kind of has their citywide stuff that I think might help some of the
I
things
think
that go on up there.
somewhat.
And as far as Riddle goes, we need to figure out exactly what we're doing probably with that building first to make sure that we're gonna keep
Yeah,
moving, you know.
like I said, I think the priority should be this building first, and then hopefully by the time we get this
Yeah.
installed, maybe we'll have a better direction.
And I don't know that Hank and the public defender don't have their own. They probably could, so I'll find that out. And Kelly Jo, she has, whatever connection she has in this building is through the state, and I'm gonna guess it's through child support as well, so. All right.
Prosecutor's office have Wi-Fi?
Pardon me?
Prosecutor's office?
Oh, yeah,
That's good.
he's all set. Yes, yeah. All right, good? All right, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Joanne.
Yep. Later.
So the next item was the sheriff's vehicle request. I guess, in my mind, there's two things that are being asked. The first is the sheriff would like to increase the size of the fleet, and that's the bigger issue. That would take our annual expenditures from around 250,000 a year up closer to 550,000 a year. So you're talking almost a $300,000 increase annually. Along with that, then he wants to turn the vehicles over quicker, which of course means you're replacing more and more frequently. So those are the two issues. My recommendation remains that we proceed this year with how we originally planned, and we bring this proposal, package it with the remaining proposals, and begin seeing if it can be fit in for the 2022 budget, and worked in with that allocation. 300,000 is a significant change, to any budget, and we're already a quarter of the year through this year.
Do you have the line items?
Yeah, did you want those for this purchase?
Please, yes. This is all the, yeah. Thank you.
This is 3 years prior expenditures. So you see the prior 3, prior 2, prior 1. The current year spending, that's probably not a very useful column right now, but then the last column is the current budget.
Do we have a line, I know the commissioner's office doesn't require a line item expenditure from just a whole bunch of numbers. Do we have that? How much is in your line item left over for leases this year?
Well, so in the 6s, I believe we put the 250,000. That's on page 6. So they had roughly 250,000 budgeted. They spent, you can see there, the 46. That's basically the
New car?
sheriff's F-250. So we've got around 201 budgeted there. That was, I guess, more of a placeholder than an absolute limit, but that's the line item.
And this year he wants, if I go to this thing that he gave us, he needs another 219,000?
Well, his request is for you to sign a $560,000 contract for the leases for this year,
For the 15 year?
based on that $200,000 encumbrance. I mean, that is the difference.
So for the 15 cars, or whatever that was, that's $500,000?
$560,000 over the 3-year lease, yeah.
Over the 3-year lease, or is that right now for this year?
So, I guess, the way I would look at it is you are signing a contract. The entire 560 will be encumbered.
Correct.
You are committing 560,000 of your funds.
Over 3 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Next year, though, you're gonna have another $460,000 encumbrance. The year after that, you're gonna have another $460,000 encumbrance. So it's not like it's 560 only over 3 years. Basically, he would like to spend 560,000 this year. And we had planned on around 250.
Thing is the whole lease over a 3-year period.
Yes, yes.
And then next year, 460 in 1 year.
He had 12, which comes out to 460 if you're leasing. Now, if you're buying, it's a little bit more. To me, the argument shouldn't be, well, let's buy 15 if we lease, but only 6 if we buy outright. The leasing and buying is not our issue right now. Our issue right now is the numbers. Whether we choose to lease those or buy them due to our cash flow situation, then is a discussion that we could have. Leasing is more expensive, period. You pay a leasing fee. So
When I was looking at the breakdown that they gave us for the one, we pay like an extra 2,000 something a year.
that's correct. Enterprise,
Does that mean?
No.
no, that's just the
No,
lease.
just
That's
the
the finance
lease.
charges. Now,
It's $2,048.52 a year
yeah.
per vehicle
Which they?
on the lease rate.
Now, so we save money by using enterprise, and obviously enterprise needs to get their money in some way. So if you just look at the lease as an additional cost, you say, well, why would we pay that? Part of it, we pay it to participate with enterprise. The question is, can we get away with paying that on as few as vehicles possible? And that's what we have currently tried, and that's why we buy some vehicles outright and we lease some vehicles. So again, to me, the leasing issue, leasing a vehicle doesn't make those vehicles more affordable. You're still paying the money. And we have, our godsend right now is we have the cash balance. What we don't have is continuing funds going into the next few years. You know, I pointed out we're almost 800,000 short for this year. We're gonna be almost 500,000 to 1 million short next year in terms of operations over revenue. So we need to begin trying to make some corrections there. So I wouldn't advocate putting today's expenses off till tomorrow, because tomorrow things get worse. I would advocate
So
getting
just
while
to
we can.
clarify, when we put the sheriff on a rotation, the former sheriff was fine, because at one point in time, I remember they bought like 15, they leased like 15 cars all at once. And
Yeah, that
then they
was
all
like
came up.
2012.
Remember that, Vicki? They
Right.
all came up, and that's when it was
Yeah.
creating an issue, and we decided to put them on a replacement plan, so that every year,
That's
so many
always been my
cars-
recommendation, and my recommendation has been, if we're ready to replace 5, let's replace 5. Even if we have a couple, we could probably use a few more months. Let's still sell them. We used to do the trick where we buy vehicles, but then we keep the old ones until they absolutely died, and that was not a very reliable way to maintain the fleet. So what we came up with is a rotation. The current rotation, though, is based on the fact that we do not have take-home vehicles, which is what the new sheriff would like. So our current rotation is 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5, and that replaces 23 vehicles every 3 to 5 years as they go along, which is roughly what's needed for road patrol. That rotation is different for the detective vehicles, which are not used nearly as much, and it's different for the K-9 vehicles, et cetera. So right now, we're only talking road patrol, but that was our goal. We have reduced the mileage on the fleet, the average mileage. It's still over 100,000, which some people criticize. But to be honest, if you look at our list of repairs, which I believe I gave you guys, the vast bulk of our repairs are brakes, tires, and oil changes. We really do have very, very few repairs. And even when I went through the list, there was a air compressor that went out. That was on a vehicle with only 80,000 miles. I mean, you can't guarantee that it's only the 100,000. Generally what happens, and it just happened, we had a vehicle show up at Sarchione's. It needed $4,000 in repairs, and the recommendation was don't repair it. This is a vehicle that should be pulled from your fleet. And so the sheriff was sent an email saying, you know, this is one that we should pull. We recommend not fixing it right now. And so of the 8 we're gonna pull this year, that would be one of them. So we do have some capacity in our fleet for, we can pull that vehicle now, even though we know we're not gonna get new vehicles till July, and we can still keep operations going. In that manner, we have avoided those big repairs on some of these older vehicles. We managed to get them right to the point where those repairs start coming due, and then we simply pull them at that point. That's our current practice.
I have a question,
Mhm.
because it was alluded that a car was on the road 24/7, and there's nothing more than 3 or 4 deputies on duty at a time, and we have over 20-some cars, so how could a car, they're acting like someone's
Yes,
jumping out of the car, someone's jumping in it, it stays on the road. And I can tell you, the biggest complaint I ever hear is, every time you go to the sheriff's department, there's 15 cars just sitting there. How is it
So the
that,
4 is what we call our road patrol.
yeah,
And those are the ones that are out all the time. I don't believe those 4 vehicles are out 24/7. I don't honestly know that. The other thing we have though is the 911. So if there's an emergency, then it's possible other vehicles go out to that emergency as well. So it's not that we only ever have just the 4, but generally speaking, all 23 are not on the road every minute of every
that's
day.
what I was saying, because they alluded that cars are on the road
Yeah.
24/7, and.
If you look, I think I gave you guys the average mileage. You know, we have 4 or 5 vehicles that get 30 to 40,000 miles a year, which is a lot. We also have some vehicles in that list that only got around 7 or 8 in the given year. Part of it just depends on how they're signed to that particular unit. And in fact, Deputy Chief Spitaleri kind of commented that, you know, one of their goals will be to watch those things and maybe rotate that vehicle to this use and that vehicle to that use so that there's more even usage across those vehicles, which would be a good thing, I think, to have happen. That way, you aren't getting that type of thing. But, you know, those vehicles that are going 30 and 40,000 miles, those are the ones that we're replacing tires on, you know, 2, maybe even 3 times. We're replacing brakes on. And so those vehicles have extremely high maintenance on them. But again, if you spread those miles out across 3 vehicles, you'd still have the exact same maintenance. It'd just be spread across 3 vehicles. But you're still gonna replace a set of tires every X miles if you're driving 60,000 miles, whether it's on 6 cars or 1 car, you're gonna replace those tires. So anyway,
So the hot seating the cars at 24/7, there's a couple cars they talked about for a while, they have to do that. It's more often, sometimes it's 2 shifts, what I gathered from what they were saying. Through there. So this is where I have a very difficult time when you speak, Todd, or when I hear the enterprise people speak, or I've heard a chief deputy speak with that. They're polar opposites of the costs. That you say that we're just going so overboard with the cost versus buying a car and running it till just before it dies and we put a bullet in it. So that's where my biggest issue comes in, the total difference in opinion from one to the other. There's not even, we're not even the same. So.
well, I don't know that it's that far off. It's
how we fix the problem, and that's what I want to do is fix the problem.
like I said, on maintenance, I don't think it's gonna go down. If you look at our maintenance list, we really do not have that many repairs
It's oil, gas,
of things
right.
like transmissions and whatnot. You know, when Enterprise pulls their data, they're using national averages of, yes, vehicles tend to get transmissions around 120,000 miles. We're not replacing transmissions on every one of our vehicles. In fact, we hardly ever do. So when we look at our actual data, I don't think our maintenance is that outrageous for the age of our fleet. In fact, I used the budget for Akron, and I can tell you we're a lot better off than they are in terms of how we maintain our vehicles. We've saved a considerable amount of money going with Enterprise, and that's a good thing. We have Sarchione, we have, who's the dealership in Garrettsville there? I can't remember. Anyway, we've got some extraordinarily good mechanics here in Portage County that are taking very good care of our fleet. I don't think we've missed out at all in going to private sector maintenance compared to having our own shop. So we have a well-maintained fleet. The vehicles are safe and operational, and we're doing so at very good pricing. In my opinion, we've saved over $200,000 by switching, and we're hoping to save some more money. So I don't think there's a lot of excess money there to be run out of the system.
So when you say that it's running good, the lease program is doing very good.
So to participate with Enterprise at all, you have to lease a certain portion, and we do that. We don't lease every vehicle, and we've only started leasing. I believe our oldest lease will be 3 years old this year. And one of the things the commissioners at the time were made aware of, and that was back with Mike Sussman 3 years ago, you know, we're gonna kind of test the waters. And as we see good results, we'll engage more fully in that aspect of the program, and as we don't, we'll move away from aspects of the other program. The nice thing is, being a county of our size, we have the ability to move options, et cetera. And that's the key between leasing and buying versus turning vehicles in early versus not. We could trade our vehicles right now through Enterprise. Whether we buy them or lease them, it doesn't matter. We could take a 2-year-old vehicle and we could turn it into Enterprise for the price that they listed with us. And every year we get quotes on what our cars are probably worth. It hasn't been worth it for us to go after that value compared to buying more, and so we haven't really engaged in it. That's still going to be true next year, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. We're always going to compare the value of our vehicles and decide whether we should turn them in early. So that isn't changing with this decision here. Really, the only thing that's changing with this decision here is how many vehicles we maintain in our fleet. If we go from 23 to around 40, I believe is what his current proposal would have us at, which takes us from an annual expenditure of $200,000 to $250,000 every other year, up to around $450,000 to $550,000 if we're leasing. Of course, if we're buying outright the 12 vehicles, at $48,000, let's just say $50,000, you're talking $550,000 to $600,000 and almost $700,000 if we're purchasing outright. That's the decision before the board, is whether you want to increase the annual expenditures on sheriff's vehicles in order to increase the number of vehicles in the fleet.
Are they talking about rotating these vehicles? You just said 2 years. Is it a 3-year or 4-year rotation that they're talking about?
What Chief Spitaleri had proposed was a 3-year rotation. We currently do 4.
I heard, his name, Barb. I heard Barb ask the question before this all started, that, we can do this and take survey kind of what's happening, but we have that data of other counties that
Correct.
have take-home vehicles.
Correct.
And has that, what I've seen is that's been a relatively good thing.
There are positives and negatives to
Yep.
take homes. The cars are kept cleaner usually. The other side to that though is, if this is my take-home vehicle, when it starts to rattle, I take it in right away. If it's a shared vehicle, we don't always take that rattle in. And so sometimes nicks and beans don't get repaired, which maybe they don't need to in a shared vehicle, whereas they're for sure gonna get repaired if it's take home. So you get increased costs in minor maintenance, whereas you turn in a cleaner vehicle.
Minor maintenance is good.
Well, like a ding on the door, that type of thing, maybe not, I don't know.
These guys put dings in their police cars and
All the time.
and get them fixed.
It depends.
If it's a big ding.
Yeah.
If I get dinged.
Yeah, you don't want it to rust out. Again, I'm not a mechanic, but we follow the advice of the mechanics at Sarchion and whatnot. I'm just pointing out that take-home vehicles, in general, if you read the studies, sometimes you get higher maintenance costs on the little things because that person they notice it more quickly. That's the downside to the take-home vehicles. There's goods and there's bads to both. There isn't overwhelming evidence one way or the other, or else everybody in the country would be doing it that way. There's goods and bads. What I was hoping the sheriff would present more of is the benefits to his deputies in terms of service. And instead, we got a lot of financial talk, which we really don't need to. That's not what's holding the decision up. What would be nice to know is, what does the sheriff feel the benefits of a take-home fleet are, so that you can decide whether that $300,000 is worth those benefits compared to putting that same $300,000 towards extra prosecutors or extra judges or whatever other requests we have that come in. And that's to me where we don't have all the information quite yet. We're running out of time on the decision for this year. And so again, my recommendation, studying all this other issue, is not to not do this. My recommendation is to proceed with how we were gonna proceed this year, and then have this package be part of the 2022 budget considerations, so that you can lay it out and decide, you know what, do we wanna put more money towards vehicles and less money towards some other operation of the county? But you'll be able to make that decision knowing the benefits and the trade-offs that you're making at that time. And then you'll be able to start the year that way instead of having to try and adjust midway through.
So did last sheriff get his cars last year?
Yeah, 2020 vehicles?
2020
Yeah.
vehicles? They did get 5 or 6 vehicles?
Yeah, we've never not gotten road patrol. The whole thing is, 3 years ago, I recommended some detective vehicles be replaced. And they, did not want to replace those at that time. And there was a van as well that we recommended be replaced. The van's actually been replaced because it finally died on the road. Their detective vehicles do need looked at. What we're waiting on right now is this decision on the road patrols, because that will determine how much money we have for other things. Randy would like a truck. The veterans would like a van. Janet Esposito has talked about replacing her weights and measure car. We need to replace detectives' vehicles. We have a canine vehicle that just got $4,800 in repairs last week put into it. So there are other cars in our fleet that we do need to begin looking at. The key is, I need to know what you're gonna spend for this portion of it, so that we can make good decisions then on the rest as well.
So the benefit that I've looked into other counties that had road patrols that take home is Portage County is one of those counties that there's so much land that they patrol, and every time I've gone around for the last few years, is everybody's worried about public safety. My first solution was, just like Aurora, I pay really high taxes in Aurora. I whistle for a cop and months close by to get there. That doesn't work here. With the other counties or places that have done this, one of the benefits is, and there are some counties that say, hey, if you want to go to a drugstore, take a patrol car. Because people now see
You see that out in the community.
vehicle parked in somebody's driveway, is there a cop attached to it? I know if I'm driving down the freeway and I see a trooper car, I slow down and I see.
Whether he's on
Yeah,
duty or
that
not.
goes- But that's it, and that is one of the benefits I think would serve huge for this county, is because we, to patrol it, like Aurora gets patrolled, is an impossibility. But to be able to have vehicles sitting in driveways and people not knowing, is there a deputy attached to that vehicle? Or going someplace or to a store, does somebody wanna rob that, or there's a police vehicle. And
Absolutely,
that-
there are good things.
So there
to
are
it.
some good things.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially in respect to that, I had a question before. Deputy Spitaleri says he lives in Geauga County. How many other of our Portage County deputies live in Geauga County?
I'm not aware, I don't know.
Well, that should be irrelevant to your policies,
Well,
to
the
be
point
honest.
was,
but-
Tony's point was that, you know, this deputy has his sheriff's vehicle at home, and if he takes it out to the Geauga County drugstore, that does have.
It does, exactly.
That was where.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly, so I would hope that most of our deputies live relatively close by.
Todd, are we hiring more road patrol too? Is that why we need more cars, or?
Right
the take-home-
now,
Is the take-home the only reason we need more cars?
Yeah.
right now, take-home is the only reason they've proposed. We have not increased the allocation for staffing the road patrol. I mean, you'll be aware, even from Sheriff Doak, that is always the sheriff's priority. That is the visible service he provides to the community. That is one of the values. Unfortunately, it is not one of the mandates, which is why it tends to be the most contentious, because they want it, but it doesn't, it requires a lot of funding that isn't necessarily required on the state's view. But as of right now, no, there is not an increase in the road patrol staff. It's the corrections officer staff, you know, that we're trying to boost up. The only reason presented to me, at least, has been for the take-home aspect of increasing this fee. And again, there's benefits to it. My argument remains, now is not the time to necessarily make that level of a decision, but you guys are welcome to still make it, if that's your choice.
Todd, I know, we're just in the beginning, we're not even through the first quarter for the budget, as far as the sheriff's budget. But, you know, last year, we cut an extra $1 million in his budget that he has to absorb through attrition or somehow.
That's correct.
How is this adding?
Well, so that's what I have been talking to these commissioners, because you guys aren't quite on the same page now as we were in December. But, you know, last year, the contention was whether we should cut the sheriff's budget almost $700,000 outright. I felt then, and I still feel now, that it was not fair, because I don't think that had been accurately communicated to him, that he needed to make that cut, and I certainly didn't think it was fair to try and place that on the new sheriff to try and figure out in the next couple months while I was figuring out just how the department runs. So we decided to fund that $700,000 for 2021. In December, the idea was, though, that you guys would sit down with that sheriff and explain your 2022 budget is not going to continue containing that amount. We have to begin weaning off that money because it's no longer being collected from the taxpayers. That message, I don't believe, has been delivered to the new sheriff.
So that, because I'm like the new sheriff, and a newbie, is that money, that $1 million, is that because of the?
Additional sales
Sales
tax,
tax.
yeah, that went by the wayside.
So that brings me to my other thought process of, that I've got two of them with what I think is one is that was the jail or did they give money back? It wasn't, I heard it wasn't over budget, they had $2 million, $2.5 million left over that they turned back into the county. Is that true or?
I never liked that wording because you never had the money to begin with to turn back. The jail came in on budget.
How much was the budget? Was that 14 million or 22 million?
It was right around 20 for the jail. Yeah.
So the tax was put on.
For
to build the
25.
jail-
Well, it was put up for 25 million.
Right, 45 million.
And we had 5 million worth of other programs in order to help the treat and
Yeah, it wasn't just for the jail.
I know it wasn't.
to buy in with the program.
Because I'm a newbie, I want to ask these questions in public, because.
And
I've
part
heard a bunch
of-
different things.
part of that additional funding was their road patrol was increased by 400,000, so that the average citizen could feel like there was something for them. And probation was increased by around 200,000, because in part, the logic of the probationary increase was we didn't have room in the jail. The judges were keeping people out of the jail by putting them on probation, and so that was straining the probation department. And the reason that was put in the additional sales tax is because the thought was, when the jail was built, then probation would get a relief as those people went to the jail. It doesn't appear probation is gonna get the relief.
So,
But that was the logic of why that money was used
so
for
we
those
have
purposes.
such a difficult time, and when she just said, the thought has been for the last couple of years that the sheriff's budget is gonna go down by $1 million. That since I've only lived in Portage County for the last 30 years, and majority of that time, all we've ever heard was that, the sheriff's department is always coming back to the commissioners for more money. And I've only got a small business, and I know people have big businesses, and when I run that by businessmen, that means, well, if they gotta keep asking for money, you're not giving them enough money to run their department. And that seems to be what Portage County has done in a bunch of places. We don't fix things, we put them off for.
To be honest, I don't know of very many counties across the state where the sheriff does not ask for more.
Yeah, absolutely, and I would ask for more
So-
in my business too.
So what you need to do is not look at the ask, you need to look at the other metrics.
Mhm.
Our call response times are below average for the state. Our crime statistics are below average for the state. So when you look at those type of metrics and you look at Portage County, we don't suffer a crime problem, we don't suffer from some of these other maladies, and so perhaps we are spending the right amount for what our citizens want. To me, I've always advocated for putting that measure on the ballot, but telling the voters what they're gonna get. If you vote this, it means you're going to see a car in your, area, or whatever, more road patrol, or you're gonna see decreased response times. Give them the metrics that it will improve. We don't even qualify for the JAG grants anymore because our crime rates are so low. So when you look at those statistics, yes, the sheriff always asks for more, but on the other hand, are we spending the proper amount for what our citizens expect? And the answer is maybe. That's up for you guys to feel. But
So the maybe part of that is we have 2, 3, maybe 4 road patrols in the evening. And that's part of the staff for that one time. And it gives me the creeps, because when I looked into what happens in Nelson, that young lady or young man that's in that car may be all by himself or herself for 20 minutes if you're getting your butt beat or somebody shooting at you. How many deputies do we have in our courts?
So
There's a high contingency. We have 14, 15,
courthouse
16.
security though is a mandate.
Completely.
I mean, that's the, so you can't trade them out.
No, I don't want to trade them out.
The state's view, I'll tell you, the state's view is that places like Nelson and Rootstown should put a levy on, and they should pay for the additional policing, either through their own police department like Brenfield, or offering that money to our sheriff's department.
Well,
That's
like
how the
Hiram's
state,
got a car that they share.
yeah, that's how the state views policing. And again, that's always our dilemma, is where we'd like to spend our money isn't necessarily where we have to spend our money. We do have a lot of deputies in the courthouses, however, the courts have indicated that that's the minimum.
But, exactly, and I know that. So the question was, how many do we have? Is there 14, 16, 18 deputies within the courthouse?
I don't honestly know on any given shift how many, we can find that out for you.
There's a bunch. So go back to that 0.25% sales tax, that if the people realize that, without raising other taxes to do that, the most benign that I could ever think of is if we have a 0.25% sales tax, that was, as things were, and people keep coming more into Portage County to buy things, that was raising $5 million a year. And if that money was earmarked for safety, it was for the drug courts, and that wouldn't that solve a bunch of the financial issues that we have?
Oh, adding taxes always solves your.
I didn't ask that. I said a sales tax would that benefit, and if it was earmarked for the sheriff's operations and I think if we went, hopefully next week they'll do it here, but that's kind of too late. That this is the first time the sheriff's department, and according to their secretary for the last 5 sheriffs, they've never had business plan. These guys are coming in with a business plan, treating the sheriff's department as a business. And they are trying to raise funds for their business so they can offset the cost for the county. So my thought and the contention and I said this, and the gentleman at that meeting said to me, he had been a reporter, I said, I was surprised that they let it go. He said, well, you said it was 5 years, and he was exactly right. The commissioner said 5 years. My brain is saying the most benign way is a sales tax. That put a permanent 0.25% sales tax on the Portage County, because we are one of the lowest Portage County, to be able to deal with. And my contention 4 years ago was, well, that's not your mandate to patrol. Going around the county, that is a huge
Service people want.
huge
For
service
sure.
that the people want in public safety. And Barb had said last week, oh, you got Kent Police and you've got campus police. Well, there's a lot of other places in this county that does not have that. And the mandate, and I've heard that the troopers will be cutting their contingency at stations over the next year or so. So we have a issue that, these cars that we're talking about, the leases there, and this is just a soapbox. For the Portager, I take my hats off to the Young Democrats, because they got us to do something that we were dragging our feet and didn't want to do, by getting Wi-Fi in the building and getting this room up to the 21st century. I think that is great, and there was a small group of people that did that. I mean, max emails was 155, but they made a huge difference. And that is what I look at, is that huge difference by a few people's talking. And Mr. Bent from the Portager, I've got a problem with him now, because he asked Debbie who she was living with and sleeping with, and if it was Commissioner Badalamenti. So those kind of things he should be taken out back, and as Mr. Biden says, I'll just go by his quote there. But the issue here is these vehicles, and making our sheriff's department a better place to function that it hasn't done before, that we can be proud of. And from what I've seen, it's always a lack, and we've never wanted to go with a way that could be better or change. And I would really like to see the sheriff's department, something I'd be proud of, or want my son or daughter to work for it without thinking they're gonna get hurt because they don't have that.
So,
The sales tax, are you talking on the ballot, or are you talking
No,
about?
I would, the signatures of commissioners. This is one of those ones that I think is incredibly worthy of that. If we were gonna put any other tax on, I would say put it to voters, with the 0.25% sales tax being incredibly benign there, that if we were going up 1%, I'd say go 0.25%. I'd bring that to the signatures of the commissioners.
If I could explain something about the
Yes.
sales tax,
Yes.
it has changed now. The original 5-year period was by
It's
statute.
gone.
Well, it was by statute, it was limited to 5 years because of being done as an emergency measure. Okay, if you do it as an emergency measure, you can't do earmarks either. If you do it on a ballot, you now have 10% intervals. You can do either 25 or you can do 10.
before we get to that, I guess the issue is, do the commissioners want staff to begin preparing for the discussion of an additional sales tax? And are you entertaining that sooner, later? Are you entertaining?
Well, I would not be for
A mandate or a
imposing it. I
vote?
can tell you now, I will not vote to impose the tax. So, I mean, I think if the public truly wants, more patrol and stuff, then they would support it.
And put it on ballot?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that'd be a great idea.
No, we're not imposing.
So are
anything. No,
we-
we'll never vote to impose that.
Are we
We've got too many other taxes.
thinking of this year ballot? I mean, so I guess I came in prepared to talk about how many cars we were gonna buy.
And
Now
this
we're
goes,
talking
because this
about-
goes,
But it
this,
does
as you
speak,
say,
it
is
does
the
speak.
whole
Well,
enchilada.
So-
here's my thinking, Todd, on this. If we were to put it on the ballot, all of us, we'd have to get together and discuss what exactly that money would be used for.
You do, for the November ballot, that has to be settled by July.
Okay.
I'm just
So we
giving you
have-
the
We have a
timeframe.
couple of months.
Yeah,
My thinking on the cars is we stick with the original plan, and then if we try to put the sales tax on, if the sales tax passes, then we move into additional cars. I mean, whatever we decide that we would utilize that additional tax for is what we need to sell to the public to get their buy-in. And if they buy into it, then they'll pass it. If they don't, then again, we've got to learn to live within a budget. And the people have spoken. Because I can tell you now, we've got children's services on the ballot. That's
That's on for
every
May.
bit as important to
Yeah.
me
They got that right.
as this.
I think taking care of the kids is an incredible thing that we need to do. This is one of those things that allows people that, the people that are really helping them at that spur of the moment when the bottom falls out are the guys and the girls that we're talking about. And this, I would, my thought is that I would like to see them get the 12 or 15 vehicles this year for that lease. It makes complete sense to me as I've looked about it. As I look at the leasing cars or buying cars, that the three-year rotation of that, so we could actually get money out of that vehicle rather than killing it and putting it in the grave. So my thought, I'd like to see this on our agenda Thursday to be able to vote on whether the lease or not.
You know, and I know this had nothing to do with the cars, but I gotta tell you, Todd, I couldn't get over this telephone bill. I mean, I really couldn't.
well, and
I
that,
thought in my business, if something happened
Yeah.
like this, somebody would have been fired right there in the beginning. I mean.
well, assuming they were expenses we didn't have to make, and that's what we're checking into.
But how long did we know that, or somebody pay attention, that we knew, did the commissioners ever know that our phone bill was going, I was looking at it, it went up 30, 30, 30, 30,
Well, we
160.
don't have, what was it, in 2015?
2015, you guys bid the system.
The phone system.
And it went up. So my question would be is, if we knew that in 16 things were going awry, and to watch the next 5 years go bizarre from that time, so we knew it was happening. Were we dealing with a phone company?
Okay, well, why don't you let Todd
Yeah,
explain
absolutely.
this
Yeah,
to me, so you can
I
understand?
mean, I guess to say that it's gone awry or bizarre, to me, is a little bit of a mischaracterization.
Really?
We bid the system. I'm just gonna tell you how
Well,
we've been looking at it.
Tell me how you feel. I'd like to know facts
We
versus
bid-
you tell me how you.
We bid the
feel.
system, well, that's fine, we should have Joanne up here then.
Yeah.
She does the,
Call Joanne.
Yeah, so that's the question.
it's,
You know,
we
I'm
bid
not
the
an accountant.
system, we bid the system in 2015.
Right.
We got the absolute lowest possible price at that moment.
Right.
It was more expensive than what we had, and we knew
Okay.
that. What we had, though, was no longer tenable.
Mhm.
Costs have risen. If you look at it, it actually is last year that has the largest spike. So the question is, what specifically happened last year? The other years,
The other
they
years-
were fairly in line
This
with
is
what
just
we
for
would
the sheriff,
expect
though,
from a
right? This is
phone
the-
bill
Listen, that's just
increase.
for the sheriff. The county is 2 million.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I
So-
said the same thing. If that happened in my office, I'd be like, holy smokes, what happened?
and so your
So we
first
got a new
question should be,
system,
can I do
one-time-
something else?
We have
And
one-time
that
salary.
becomes the question, is was there an alternative we missed? And that I don't have the answer to right now. But you guys are assuming the option was pay $760 or pay $80, and we chose to pay $760.
No.
I'm not sure that's
Nobody,
what
no,
happened.
no,
at all.
nobody said that.
Well, that is
So-
being implied
No, that's
elsewhere.
No, but it's in, what's being implied,
That's why I said it was a
It's
mischaracterization.
not
Our
implied.
choice was not 80,000 or
in
760.
10 years, it went up, and that's,
Yes.
Vicki, how many percent is that? That's
941.
941%
Yeah.
increase. So I understand, so you have it.
Now, the question is, was last year a unique spike, and is it coming back down? That, and
Mine would be the one before that. So we bought all new equipment for the sheriff's office all new phones and stuff?
that, Joanne will know what they did. I know we did increase the, recordings at one
Right,
point
right.
throughout that. They did not get quite all the same equipment like we got here in this building in terms of replacing switches and everything. So that's where Joanne will know what exactly was done. Again, I'm just trying to point out, our choice has never been 80 versus 760.
No,
And we
nobody
made
said.
760.
It's, where our thought
Yeah.
is as that started climbing like that, if it was a business, not a government entity, somebody said, oh, hit the brakes, what the heck's happening?
Yeah, we review costs.
Mhm.
Again, the idea of the sleepy government worker sitting at his desk is not accurate. We have actively tried to reduce costs when we can. A good example is our turning over to enterprise from the motor pool. We saved the county $200,000 on that.
And I think
And
you would say
that
the
was a
government-
proactive endeavor on
Right.
staff. We do keep our eye on things like this. The phones have spiked,
Mhm.
and we are reviewing it. Again, the question isn't whether they spike, the question is there an alternative for us?
The
And
why.
if there isn't an alternative, then that is the
Right,
cost of
I
funds.
agree. And the why is the why in business is, why is that happening, rather
Yeah.
than going over a 10-year period of time, or whatever that is.
Well, the 10 years is misleading. We should go from 2015, which is when the system was altered.
The new system.
Yeah.
So that's 16, so we're
And
going
again,
from 82.
that was the cheapest system we could have possibly gotten, because we had every vendor come in and provide quotes.
Mhm.
We had every vendor come in and provide, the different alternatives. We set up, we had 3 rooms where every elected official was able to come and talk to the vendors and test the systems. So 2015, yes, we have a pretty good idea that that was the absolute cheapest we could provide telephone services for at that moment.
Mhm.
And that should always be reviewed. In fact, it should be reviewed every 8 years to be rebid. That's just
For
the nature of
replacement of
phones now.
services.
It's the 30 years is gone. So, I don't know what to tell you. It's
No, I just,
disappointing that it's happened, but to say that it happened because staff
no, we just
just
have to.
wasn't paying attention.
The only person we
is
can
the
ask
mischaracterization.
is there's only one
Yeah.
to explain it to us.
Yeah.
And I still haven't got a real good explanation as that popped up there. But, agree, there's only a handful of people get to pay the bills. Bless you.
Excuse me. I think
So
this
I
gave
still
the-
need-
I think this gave the sheriff though,
There's a lot of
Well, and
people.
that's an issue that, again, we're looking into it. Joanne right now is working with AT&T. I have, Vicki, you're the only one who hasn't given your thoughts on 6 versus 12. And I've got a 6, I've got a 12. What are your thoughts on
He's talking about the car.
the vehicles? Back to the cars, I apologize.
well, my concern is, when we do this, we are gonna have to take the prosecutor's office into consideration, not about cars, but about money, and the public defender.
Those are all issues that pile on, that's, so, the question, I guess,
Todd's going by cars right now.
well, the thought was you guys wanted a resolution to vote on Thursday. Do you want me to bring both resolutions? Do you want me to bring one or the other? What is the board's pleasure to have before them on
Well,
Thursday?
if we are looking at doing a possible sales tax to increase, this would only make sense that we would put the additional cars into that sales tax. I mean, we're not gonna spend the money and then hope for it. That's not how government works.
No, and that's why I've got you down for the 6.
Yeah.
Which is the continuation of the plan.
I'm not for more, only because if we are entertaining a sales tax to go to the public, what else are we gonna put in there? I mean, he wants cars, he wants, what else? We haven't
Well,
really
it's
done
gonna
it, and
have
that's
to,
why
it's
we.
gonna have to be public safety, it's gonna have to be.
Yeah.
Public safety. And that could be, and that's the drugs as well, is public safety.
And that's where really, and I mentioned that to Ralph the other day, we need them to come in with a plan, a comprehensive plan and a priority of what they wanna see.
They want to cheat
Understanding.
first with the money.
Exactly, because that would help us with putting on a sales tax. I mean, you've gotta have justification for it. You can't just say, I want to do this, I want to do that. Like you said, they've gotta show, by adding all these additional cars to the road and take home, other than an additional expense to us, what is gonna be the impact? What are we hoping to get back from that? What rate of return are we hoping to get? And that's what we haven't heard, and I think that would be a good conversation to have the sheriff come in.
I think I'm next week to talk about that.
No, they're coming in to talk about the union, contact
I
See,
thought, did
this
they
is-
cancel the 18th when they came last week?
No.
Or are we still on for the 18th?
No, they should come in this week.
So with that, Sabrina, I look
I
at,
think that's what they're saying, it's gonna have to come
for the cars. That's for cars. So we couldn't, and Mr. Ames threatened to sue, so only one commissioner could go, and I went. At that meeting that evening, they presented a very concise business plan of what they wanted to do, how they wanted to do it, where we're at now. They did comparisons for other cities, townships, and counties. They presented all that, because one of us could go, we have not had an opportunity to speak about that. And actually, both papers that carried it had pretty much detailed exactly what he said, and which I thought was pretty good. So they have a business plan, and their secretary, after 5 sheriffs, said it's the first time somebody's ever come in with a business plan. So their business plan is how do they offset? I've never heard a sheriff talk to anybody about how do I offset what I ask in this county for? How do I offset that by making money? If you look at what they're doing with CCWs, it's incredible what they're starting to do on a weekly basis, because they opened up their office and they're cognizant of what's going on. That I hear that when they shoot 25 bullets in a year, because nobody put in training for them, and people have their different opinions about training deputies, but I want, if they put a gun on their hip, I want them trained in all aspects. One is to save my butt, and 2 is to save themselves or their friends. So they did have a comprehensive business plan, and because of the sheriff's schedule, he didn't get a chance to come here and do that. So we've been waiting for 3 weeks to find time so they could present, and I believe the chief said he needs about a half hour to 40 minutes of our time to do that. But they did that in a public session. Commissioner Klein declined because she didn't want to get into a lawsuit that there was nothing to sue about, Brian. It's just everybody had to, we could have all been there on different places and listened to the same thing without coming here and saying that we don't know, we haven't heard. The guy tried to give it to us, tried to put us in
The
place.
proper venue, Tony,
Is right here in this room.
and I know if you are new,
Yeah,
it's
I
to
know.
come here.
So-
We are where the buck stops, not
Understand.
to a group of supporters that are only in your deputies and their families and a handful of supporters.
I get that.
That was not a good venue to do it, and it should have came here first.
They wanted to get it here first, and with the times that we had available, they.
I don't wanna
didn't.
hear that,
You
because
can-
they
you
canceled
do.
twice on
They
this.
did. They did,
We're gonna
absolutely.
agree to disagree, they canceled twice on
So,
this.
do we still want to
So-
schedule the sheriff for that presentation? My understanding was when they came last Thursday, it was in lieu of the meeting we were trying to schedule. I could be wrong on that. Are we still interested in having the
I
sheriff come?
thought we were, I mean,
I
I
thought we
didn't hear differently
I
on the
didn't either.
18th.
I thought that was more in depth, this is just one subject matter.
So
They
are-
were just trying to come in and.
Amy will
Bring
still
this
work
on
on
to
getting
us.
them here, and it's over their whole presentation, not just the
So
enterprise.
that's Jennifer coming from Enterprise.
I thought she was good.
I don't believe she is, I could be wrong. The question is this just about vehicles still, or is this the whole package?
I thought they were coming to finally be able to present to the commissioners
The business plan.
the business plan. that they were
No,
supposed to
that
do.
was never discussed, it was the vehicle.
Yes.
So what do we want in terms of a meeting with the sheriff? Do we want a meeting on just the vehicles, or are we
I
done
don't think we
hearing
really
that?
need it on the vehicles, we've already heard them, we know what we can afford. We understand the numbers that aren't necessarily the accurate numbers and what the sheriff's proposal has given us, because they're only
So do
looking
we
at
want their
6
whole
months,
business
and we're gonna
plan?
have them for a year, I don't know why.
Do we want them to come and present their whole business plan similar
That's
to what
what
they
I
did?
would like to hear, because
So that's what Amy will work on
Salary.
getting scheduled. Is that, is that?
Yeah.
Still the desire?
I
Okay.
misunderstood because I knew
So-
that this is, I thought that's what they were coming back.
So we will give the sheriff
No,
45
they're coming in
minutes
for-
sometime in the next few meetings to present his business plan. I come back to the vehicles. I have one commissioner saying for this year, let's do the 6, and we can talk about next year doing more. I have one commissioner saying, let's just do the 15, it's actually 15 now.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
it's 15.
So Vicki, I still need your
Now,
guidance as to what you
if
prefer.
we've got 8, that means we need 7 more, is that what we're saying?
So we would buy 6 new, we already bought the F-250 for the sheriff, he already has that in his possession, so we would pull a vehicle for that still. And then solid waste ended their,
Yeah, but Alex.
I call it the trash program, there was a better name for it, the environmental compliance officer program. That vehicle, which had 100,000 miles on it, went to the sheriff. That vehicle is better than some of the ones currently in use, and so my logic is pull one of the worst ones, since we put that one
Right.
into their fleet. So those two are for vehicles I already have. Then we would purchase the 6 we had planned on this year and also pull those 6. That was the original plan for this year. The alternate plan is to go with the 15. I've got one for each.
All right, the 6 you're talking about, are we purchasing or leasing the 6?
I haven't even really sat down, to me,
Doesn't really
to
matter.
me, it's the same cost. It's just whether you're spreading out. Right now, I don't believe we need to spread
And
out our
that's
money,
why, you
so
know
I would
what,
advocate more
think
for purchase, but.
we need to bring them in, because there may be other priorities that the sheriff has that maybe they realize, maybe instead of the cars, we wanna do this. We're not gonna be able to do everything they want.
Mhm.
We don't have an open checkbook. But if they could come in prioritize, so we can start working on their priorities, then, and maybe vehicles are a priority, maybe they're not, I have no idea.
So
You
I
know,
still
but this
need guidance.
piecemealing it, coming in for this, let's be, that, it's gotta stop.
I still need
Because-
guidance for the resolution for Thursday. And Vicky's, again, I have yet to hear your preference for either the 6 as originally planned, with the idea that we'll still discuss the increased fleet in 2022, or would you rather do the increased fleet right now?
You know what, let's stick to our original plan for right now
Okay.
and ask if he has priorities that we.
Yeah.
So that is the resolution I
In all
will bring for
fairness.
Thursday, is
Yeah.
the original 6. The next question that I would have before we go on to the executive session is regarding the sales tax. Is that something the board is serious about achieving for November, and do you want me to begin the work on getting that in place for you over the
Well, I
next
would like to
couple
hear from the
months?
sheriff first.
Do that
I wanna
first
see
and
what
then-
other-
Okay,
The less tax we have to tax our people, the better, because like I said, there's gonna be other taxes that are gonna be added. If we can do away with not adding an additional tax, and I know people think, oh, we let that sales tax lapse. That sales tax was not permanent, it was only
Right.
supposed to have been for the 5 years. We did everything we said we would do within the 5 years, except the sheriff's department did not absorb the additional staffing. And that's why we gave the sheriff the money. If that's truly what the people want, then they will vote to put on an additional tax. If they say no, you know, we're maxed out, the economy's tough, we can't afford school taxes, you know, child safety taxes, then that's what we have to live with.
so, Tony, I heard you say earlier you'd be all for doing it now. Is that still your opinion?
I will go with Sabrina,
Do the sheriff first?
Sabrina
Let's hear
needs,
the sheriff.
Is that- okay.
the whole plan, the enchilada that he's got,
Okay,
what his vision is, what his business plan is, how are they raising money, and all those things that they,
okay.
sounds like they have.
You know, Todd, there may be another priority other than those vehicles.
Well, that's why we want it all in front of
Yeah,
us, you
and
know.
that's why I said in fairness.
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
if not,
So-
then we need to work with the sheriff if we
Okay.
decide to do the tax,
Right.
on how to market
I agree.
it, get it out.
And
So-
they would have to be part of that.
I will get you
Yeah,
figures on
absolutely.
courthouse security. We will proceed with the 6th purchase right now. That doesn't preclude us from doing more later either, but that's what we'll proceed with on Thursday. And then Amy will schedule a meeting for the presentation of the business plan sometime within the next month or whatever.
Yeah,
And then after that meeting, we will sit down again and then discuss the possibility of a sales tax levy or not at that point. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
I think that's a good
That-
plan, Chris.
Everything out on the
Vicky,
table.
you think so?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's how we do it anyway, so.
And 'cause
Are we
thanks to the
ready?
reporter here, by the way, I keep thanking you guys. They're doing a great job streaming. Your cameras are better than ours. So hopefully you'll get a couple hundred people to watch it rather than five.
And,
Couple thousand last week.
Was it really? So
Are we-
I want to triple that then, please. Okay? Thank
Okay,
you.
Todd, what do you got?
are we ready for Janet and the executive session?
Yes.
Okay, I will go get her for you.
Guys, I'm sorry, we're gonna go into executive session to, discuss Martin.
Did Joanne? Did Joanne? I don't know, she was actually on the phone. Oh, okay, she was on the phone.
we can cancel that, right?